that we're live on YouTube. Great. And so again, welcome to B'nai Israel's Purim celebration. Chag Sameach, Purim Sameach. Tonight's observance will include the traditional blessings, the synopsizing the story, highlighting the passages, and then a special and hopefully fun version that will have you singing. Even should our director of sacred music, even should Linda not be with us. Yet before we turn to Esther and the Purim story of overcoming the planned annihilation of an entire people, our people, we must first pause to consider world events and Russia's endeavor to squash freedom and eradicate Ukrainian identity, which Raphael Lemkin, the Jewish lawyer whom during the Shoah formulated the modern concept of genocide, would likewise have included as a form of genocidal activity what the Russians are doing in trying to eradicate Ukrainian identity. For out of the depths of our own Jewish historical experience, as well as American concepts of liberty, spring empathy for and solidarity with the people of Ukraine. We pray for an end to Russia's invasion into Ukraine with its barbarism and purposeful targeting of the innocent. May God and may we comfort the many refugees, providing support to the suffering and the starving. May the Ukrainian nation, under the inspired leadership of Volodymyr Zelensky, find the strength to defend themselves against the cruel onslaught. And may our own nation's leaders act with wisdom and courage so as to hasten and secure a time envisioned by our ancient prophets when justice wells up like water and righteousness like a mighty stream, and nation shall not lift up sword against nation, neither shall they learn war anymore. I'm going to screen share the blessings which Michelle and Peggy, you can see on our big screen, the Al Hanisim Val Hapkorkan Val Hagvurot Val Hachuot Val Hamilchamot Shasita Lavotenu Bayamim Hahem Bazman Hazeh. Loyal to the memory of our heroic ancestors, remember the bravery of Esther and the dignity of Mordechai when they were challenged by events and the wicked Haman. Esther and Mordecai were victorious against those cruel and prejudiced people who would have spared no one. Happily, goodness defeated hate. And for that, we dedicate ourselves to Judaism and we thank God. And after the Gans of Megillah, we make sure to eat and drink. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher kitshanu b'mitzvotav v'tzivanu al mikra Megillah. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam she'asa nisim lavotenu bayamim hahem bazman hazeh. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam shehechianu v'kiyamanu v'higiyanu lazman hazeh. And we now are going to see the Megillah, and I'm going to share with everyone a synopsis, first of the story, and then segments of the Megillah. King Ahasuerus, ruler of the Persian Empire, holds a lavish 180-day banquet, followed by a 7-day banquet for all inhabitants of the capital city, Shushan. On the last day, he orders Queen Vashti to display her beauty before the guests by coming before them wearing her crown. She refuses, infuriating Ahasuerus, who, on the advice of his counselor, removes her from her position as an example to other women who might be emboldened to disobey their husbands. And a royal decree follows that every man should rule in his own house. Soon arrangements are made to find a new queen from the beautiful young maidens throughout the empire. A lovely and poised Jewish woman known as Esther, originally Hadassah, an orphan raised by her uncle Mordecai, is crowned the new queen. At Mordecai's behest, Esther does not reveal her Jewish heritage. Shortly afterwards, Mordecai discovers a plot by two courtiers, Bigam and Teresh, to assassinate Ahasuerus. The conspirators are apprehended and hanged, and Mordecai's service to the king is recorded, but unacknowledged. Get your groggers ready. Ahasuerus appoints Haman. We can see it on the screen too. Appoints Haman as his viceroy. Mordecai, who sits at the palace gates, he refuses to bow down to him. In revenge, Haman plots to kill not just Mordecai, but all the Jews in his empire. He obtains Ahasuerus' permission to execute his plan against payment of 10,000 talents of silver and cast lots, Purim, to choose the date on which to do this, the 13th of the month of Adar. A royal decree is issued throughout the kingdom to slay all Jews on that day. When Mordecai discovers the plan, he goes into mourning and implores Esther to intercede with the king. But she is afraid to present herself to the king unsummoned, an offense punishable by death. Instead, she directs Mordecai to have all Jews fast for 3 days for her and vows to fast as well. On the third day, she goes to Ahasuerus, who stretches out his scepter to her to indicate that she is not to be punished. She invites him to a feast in the company of Haman. During the feast, she asks them to attend a further feast the next evening. Meanwhile, Haman is again offended by Mordecai, and at his wife's suggestion, has gallows built to hang him. That night, Ahasuerus cannot sleep and orders the court records be read to him. He is reminded that Mordecai interceded in the previous plot against his life and discovers that Mordecai never received any recognition. Just then, Haman appears to request the king's permission to hang Mordecai. But before he can make this request, Ahasuerus asks Haman, what should be done for the man the king wishes to honor? Assuming that the king is referring to him, Haman suggests the man to be dressed in the king's royal robes, something akin to this, and crowned and led around on the king's royal horse. To his surprise and horror, the king instructs Haman to do so to Mordecai. Immediately after, Ahasuerus and Haman attend Esther's second banquet. The king promises to grant her any request up to half his kingdom, and she reveals that she is Jewish and that Haman is planning to exterminate her people, including herself. Ahasuerus goes out of the garden for air. Meanwhile, Haman stays behind and begs Esther for his life and falls upon her as she's reclining on her couch. The king returns at this very moment and accuses Haman of trying to molest the queen. Harbona, an aide, explains that Haman prepared gallows for Mordecai, and the king sentences Haman to hang there instead. Unable to annul a formal royal decree, the king instead adds to it, permitting the Jews to join together and destroy any and all of those seeking to kill them. On 13 Adar, Haman's 10 sons and 500 other men are killed in Shushan. Upon hearing of this, Esther requests it be repeated the next day, whereupon 300 more men are killed. Over 75,000 people are slaughtered by the Jews, who are careful to take no plunder. This hints at a much wider conflict that was unleashed by Haman's attempted genocide, and that even after Haman's downfall, the Jews still had to defend themselves. Mordechai and Esther sent letters throughout the provinces, instituting an annual commemoration of the Jewish people's redemption and a holiday called Purim, lots. Ahasuerus remains very powerful and continues his reign, and Mordechai assuming a prominent position in his court. So from the Megillah, I'm going to stop the screen share here. I'm going to read the opening. I'm going to screen share it for you now. And this is the Megillah that I have right here. Vayhi b'mei Achashverosh, hu Achashverosh, hamolech mehodu va'ad kush, sheva ve'esrim umea medina bayamim hahem, keshevet hamelech Achashverosh al kisei malchuto, asher b'shushan habira b'shnat shalosh lamalko, asa mishte lachol, sarav va'avadav, chel paras umadai, Hapartimim v'sarei hamedinot lefanav kaharoto et osher kavod malchuto ve'et yakar tiferet gedulato yamim rabim shmonim umea yom mulot hayamim ha'ela asa hamelech lechol ha'am hanimtzaim v'shushan habira la Migadol va'ad katan mishte shivat yamim bechetzer ginat bitam hamelech. And I'm going to stop that share and put up, where did it go? I think it's right. Nope, that's the wrong thing. And hang on one second. One would think that at this point, we would have this all, I'd be a pro at this, but here, let's try this again. Here we are. And it came to pass in the days of Ahasuerus, that is Ahasuerus who reigned from Hudu to Cush, over 127 provinces, that in those days, when the king Ahasuerus sat on the throne of his kingdom, which was in Shushan, the capital, in the 3rd year of his reign, he made a beautiful banquet for all his princes and his servants, the power of Persia and Media, the nobles and princes of provinces being before him, when they showed the riches of his glorious kingdom and the honor of his excellent majesty many days, 180 days. And the rule for the drinking was no restrictions, for the king had given orders to place stewards to comply with each man's wishes. So, as you know, there's a tradition of imbibing on Purim. Another critical segment. Achar hadivrim ha'ele, kashoch chamat hamelech Ahashverosh, zachar et Vashti ve'et asher asata ve'et asher niznar alecha. Vayamru na'arei hamelech Mi sartav vivakshu lamelech na'arot b'tulot tovot mar'eh. After these things, when the anger of King Ahasuerus was appeased, he remembered Vashti and what she had done and what was decreed against her. Then said the king's servants who ministered to him, let young virgins of good presence be sought for the king, and let the king appoint officials in the provinces of his kingdom, that they may gather together all the young virgins of good presence to Shushan the capital, to the harem, to the custody of Hege, and the king's eunuch, keeper of the women, and let ointments be given them, and let the girl which pleases the king be queen instead of Vashti. And the matter pleased the king, and he did so. Get the groggers ready. Vayomer Haman, Lamelech Ahashverosh, Yeshno Am Echad Mefurzar Umufurad Bein Ha'amim B'chol Medinot Malchutecha, V'dadetem Shonot Mikol Am V'et Date HaMelech Einam Osim V'Lamelech Ein Shove Lahanicham. And Haman then said to Ahasuerus, there is a certain people scattered and dispersed among the peoples, among the other peoples in all the provinces of your realm, whose laws are different from those of any other people. That part is true. And they do not obey the king's laws. That part is not true. and it is not in your majesty's interest to tolerate them. Literally have compassion. If it please your majesty, let an edict be drawn for their destruction, and I will pay 10,000 talents of silver. Thereupon the king removed his signet ring from his hand and gave it to Haman, the foe of the Jews. And the king said, the money and the people are yours to do with as you see fit. Vayomer hamelech laEsther b'mishtei hayayin. Ma shelatech v'yinatan lach u'ma b'vakachetech ad chatzi hamalchut v'teas. V'ta'an Esther v'tomar she'elati uv'vakashti im matzati chen be'enei hamelech ve'im al hamelech tov latet she'elati v'la'asot b'vakashati yavo hamelech v'haman El Hamishte Asher E'ese Lachem Umachar E'ese Kidvar Hamelech V'yetze Haman Vayom Hahu Sameach V'tov Lev V'chirot Haman Et Mordechai B'shar Hamelech V'lo Kam V'lo Za Mimenu V'yimale Haman Al Mordechai Chema. And the king said to Esther at the banquet of wine, what is your petition? And it shall be granted you. And what is your request? Even to half the kingdom it shall be granted. Then Esther answered Esther and said, my petition and my request is, if I have found favor in the sight of the king, and if it please the king to grant my petition and to grant my request, let the king and Haman to the banquet that I shall prepare for them, and I will do it tomorrow as the king has said. Then went out Haman out that day joyful with a glad heart. But when Haman saw Mordecai in the king's gate, that he did not stir for him, he was full of indignation against Mordecai. But Tomer Esther, Ish Tsar Oyev, Haman, Ara hazev Haman niva miflei hamelech v'hamalka. And King Ahasuerus answered and said to Esther the queen, who is he and where is he that he does presume in his heart to do so? This is to murder her. And Esther said, the adversary and enemy is this wicked Haman. And Haman was afraid before the king and queen, and the king, arising from the banquet of wine in his wrath, went to his palace garden. And Haman stood up to beg Esther the queen for his life, and he saw that there was evil determined against him by the king. Then the king returned from the palace garden to the place of the wine drinking, and Haman was falling upon the couch where Esther was. Then said the king, will he also force the queen with me present in the house? As the word went out of the king's mouth, they covered Haman's face. And Harbona, one of the eunuchs, said before the king, behold also the gallows 50 cubits high, which Haman had made for Mordecai, who had spoken good for the king, stands in the house of Haman. The king said, hang him on it. V'yasem hamelech Ahashverosh mas al ha'aretz v'yeh hayam. V'chol ma'aseh takfo uvurato uparshat gedulat Mordechai asher gidlo hamelech halohem ketuvim al sefer divrei hayamim lamalchei madai ufaras. Ki Mordechai hayehudi mishnei lamelech Ahashverosh v'gadol laYehudim v'ratzui l'rov echav doresh tov la'amo v'dover shalom l'chol zaro. And the king Ahasuerus laid a tribute upon the land and upon the islands of the sea, and all the acts of his power and of his might, and the declaration of the greatness of Mordecai to which the king advanced him, are they not written in the book of Chronicles of the kings of Media and Persia? For Mordecai the Jew was next to King Ahasuerus, and great among the Jews, and accepted by the multitude of his brothers, seeking the good of his people and speaking peace to all his seed. Let me stop the share for a moment. And that completes the traditional texts which we have. However, this evening, we have another text which I'd like to take you through. And again, just to make it easier for everybody, I'm going to share this with you. Now, this week is the golden anniversary of The Godfather, one of America's most celebrated films. One of the characters in the film was reputed to have been modeled on Frank Sinatra, perhaps the greatest conveyor of the great American songbook. Having heard the Megillah, let me make you an offer you can't refuse. Appreciating the timeless story with music popularized by Sinatra, amidst a very tough week in our world, maybe some classic melodies provide a bit of Purim cheer. Fairy tales can come true. It has meaning to you if you're young at heart. For it's hard you will find to be narrow of mind if you're young at heart. In Shushan, the capital of Persia, the king wanted to party. My kind of town, Shushan is. He wanted to celebrate his rule, the days of wine and roses. He invited people from throughout his kingdom to drink wine at a giant banquet. Drinking the finest wines, the men got drunk, each one bragging that they knew the most beautiful women. Tangerine, she is all they claim, with her eyes of night and lips as bright as flame. Another said, no angel could replace Nancy with the laughing face. The king also wanted to get in on the act. He decided to fetch Queen Vashti to show off her beauty. Tall and tan and young and lovely, the girl Vashti goes walking, and when she passes, each one she passes goes, ah. He envisioned Vashti appearing in just her crown. That crown in her hair, her sly come hither stare, that strips my conscience bare, it's Vashti. The key words seem to be crown and strip. Ahasuerus told her, I love the look of you, the lore of you, the sweet of you, the pure of you. But Vashti refused his summons, hoping to retain her personal honor. She sent word, I get too hungry for dinner at 8. I go to banquets, but never come late. I never bother with people I'd hate. That's why this lady is no tramp. But the king wouldn't relent. He replied, all or nothing at all. Half a love never appealed to me. If your heart never could yield to me, then I'd rather have nothing at all. Thus, Ahasuerus didn't want Vashti to be his queen any longer. Ahasuerus' ministers agreed. For example, Memucan said, my mama done told me when I was in knee pants, a woman's a two-faced, a worrisome thing that'll leave you to singing the blues in the night. Vashti was dismissed, and the king began to see many other women instead. They were all very approachable. Each woman would say, call me. Don't be afraid, you can call me. Maybe it's late, but just call me. Call me and I'll be around. The king was initially pleased. Nice and easy, does it every time. As the King James Version translation of the scroll might render the verse, thou swell, thou witty, thou sweet, thou grand, would kiss me pretty, wouldst hold my hand. But soon bachelorhood began to turn stale. Strangers in the night, exchanging glances, wondering in the night, what were the chances we'd be sharing love before the night was through? Except there wasn't much mystery. Ahasuerus was now sad and lonely. That is when he met Hadassah, aka Esther, the niece of Mordecai, Only Esther's being Jewish was kept secret. Esther was popular, pretty, and winning. The king thought, I never knew the charm of spring. I never met it face to face. I never knew my heart could sing. I never missed a warm embrace till Esther in Shushan. Whom can I run to? What have you done to my heart? He was smitten. It wasn't just Rosh Chodesh on his mind as he dreamed. Fly me to the moon. Let me play among the stars. Let me see what spring is like on a Jupiter and Mars. In other words, hold my hand. In other words, baby, kiss me. So King Ahasuerus determined to marry her. Love and marriage go together like a horse and carriage. This I tell ya, brother, you can't have one without the other. The royal crown was placed on Esther's head. From this moment on, you for me, dear, only two for tea, dear, from this moment on. And everyone celebrated. Sometime later, the king installed the wicked Haman as his chief advisor. Why, it's good old reliable Haman, the Agagite. If you're looking for action, he'll turn to the spot. Even when the heat is on, it's never too hot, not for good old reliable Haman. Oh, it's only a short ramble on to the oldest established permanent floating crap gang in Shushan. Haman was angry at Mordecai the Jew, who had neither bow down to him nor give him tribute. And Haman wanted to be worshipped as a demigod. It's only a paper moon sailing over a cardboard sea, but it wouldn't be make-believe if you believed in me. So Haman loathed Mordecai and all Jews. How much do I hate them? I'll tell you no lie. How deep is the ocean? How high is the sky? Haman swore that he'd destroy Mordecai along with his entire people. I got you under my skin. I got you deep in the heart of me, so deep in my heart that you're really a part of me. I got Jews under my skin. Haman told King Ahasuerus that a certain people, the Jews, were guilty of treason and should be annihilated for insurrection. Oh, the shark has pretty teeth, sire, and he shows them pearly white. Just a Talmud has Mordecai, sire, and he keeps it way out of sight. Haman had a plan that the Jews would be murdered and their money stolen and confiscated. A known gambler, he approached the king with an idea. Luck be a lady tonight. Initially, there was discussion of a coin toss. 3 coins in the fountain. But when they settled on lots, that is poor, as in Purim, the king was clueless as to what to do, and he figured he'd listen to his advisor, Haman. Make someone happy. Make just one someone happy. So Ahasuerus agreed to the Jews' slaughter. He was under Haman's Rasputinish, Svengali-like trance. That old black magic has me in its spell, that old black magic that you weave so well, those icy fingers up and down my spine, that same old witchcraft when your eyes meet mine. Around the same time, some assassins planned to kill the king. Conspire with me, let's kill and flee away. If you can use some exotic booze, we'll fly a carpet to Bombay. Conspire with me, let's kill and flee away. However, Mordecai, Esther's uncle, discovered their evil plot. So Mordecai blew the whistle. There may be trouble ahead, but while there's Torah, Hadassah, and romance. Let's face the music and dance. Mordecai told Esther that assassins were readying to kill her husband, King Ahasuerus, and Esther intervened on behalf of the king. So the assassins were disposed of, but before you know it, the king forgot the event. It was just one of those things, just one of those crazy flings, one of those informers that now and then sings. It was just one of those things. Then the news of Haman's wicked plan leaked out. The Jews became distraught and wore sackcloth and ashes. We'll never smile again until we smile so new. We'll never laugh again. What good would it do? For tears would fill our eyes. Our hearts would realize that our very lives are through. The bad news reached Esther, and she was afraid. Dancing in the dark till the tune ends. We're dancing in the dark, and it soon ends. Mordecai explained to Esther that she would not escape Jewry's fate. I've been around the world on a steed. I've translated Torah into Farsi, but now I'm so downhearted because I can't get started with you. Mordecai continued, and perhaps Esther had become queen exactly so that she might help her people. Admittedly cautious, Esther realized preventing this genocide was her duty. She began to fast and refine her message. Fools rush in where angels fear to tread, and so I come to you, my love, my heart above my head. Meanwhile, Haman was gloating to his wife Zeresh and his family over his newfound influence. Gleefully, he made his plans. Zip-diddy-doo-dah, zip-dee-ay. My, oh my, what a wonderful day. Plenty of booty headed my way. Zip-diddy-doo-dah, zip-dee-ay. That night, Ahasuerus couldn't sleep. He told a servant, it's 2:45. There's no one in the place except you and me. So set him up, Joe. I've got a little story you ought to know. We're drinking, my friend, to the end of a brief episode. Make it one for Mordecai and one more for the road. That night, the royal scribes had recounted for the king from his court records how Mordecai the Jew's brave deed had been forgotten. Jeepers, creepers, how'd he get those vipers? Jeepers, creepers, how'd he catch those spies? So the next morning, the king instructed Haman to parade Mordecai throughout the streets of Shushan. Haman did exactly what the king asked, but with much bewilderment and remorse. Never treats me grand or gentle the way he should. I got it bad and that ain't good. My poor ego's temperamental, not made of wood. I got it bad and that ain't good. Meanwhile, Esther had fasted for 3 days. Then, unsummoned and against protocol, remember what happened to Vashti for her breach of protocol, Esther bravely went to visit the king on his throne. He offered her anything up to half his kingdom. Extending to her his royal scepter, he crooned, I'm in the mood for love, simply because you're near me. Funny, but when you're near me, I'm in the mood for love. Esther asked that the king and Haman join her at a banquet that night. Each offered an immediate yes. They were practically high-fiving each other as they exclaimed, in the cool, cool, cool of the evening, tell her I'll be there. In the cool, cool, cool of the evening, better save a chair. The next night, Esther again asked her husband and Haman to join her at a second banquet. At just the right moment, Esther revealed her secret to King Ahasuerus. 3 little words, 6 little letters, which simply mean I'm a Jew. Esther explained that it wasn't a matter of life. If it wasn't a matter of life and death, both for Esther and her people, she would have kept silent. But since it was, she pleaded, "Never thought I'd fall, but now you hear my call. I'm getting elemental as a Jew." The king asked who wanted to hurt her. She replied it was his truster advisor, Haman. The king then got up and went into the garden to figure out his next move. Are the stars out tonight? I don't know if it's cloudy or bright, 'cause I only have eyes for you, dear. Inside, Haman begged Esther for his life, yet Esther was not so easily persuaded. I cried for you. Now it's your turn to cry over me. Every road has its turning. That's one thing I'm learning. Ahasuerus returned while Haman was hovering over Esther, pleading for his life. The king thought that Haman was trying to harm Esther. He figured, I guess I'll have to change my plan. So Ahasuerus told Esther, I'm going to love you like nobody's loved you, come rain or come shine. But could Esther trust him? Ahasuerus sought forgiveness. Called me irresponsible, called me unreliable, throw in undependable too. Do my foolish alibis bore you? Well, I'm not too clever, I just adore you. Haman finally understood that he was sunk. He told himself, when you meet a gent paying all kinds of rent for a flat that could flatten the Taj Mahal, call it bad, call it funny, but it's better than even money that the guy's only doing it for some doll. The king ordered Haman hung on the gallows that Haman himself had ordered to hang Mordecai. Harbona led Haman away, and the latter lamented, and now the end is near, and so I face the final curtain. O eunuch, I'll say it clear, I'll state my case, of which I'm certain. I've lived a life of guile, I've told each and every highway, and more, much more than this, I did it my way. The king had Haman hung, peering up at him on the gallows. The king reflected, isn't it rich? Are we a pair? Me here at last on the ground, you in midair. To be sure, Haman had not acted alone. He had a number of fellow plotters who were prepared to slaughter the Jews. They too shared his fate. I got a right to sing the blues. The Jews began to have hope for the future. They told Esther, just in time, we found you just in time. Before you came, our time was running low. But the king had given his assent to a pogrom against the Jews of his realm. Could a royal decree be undone? To dream the impossible dream, to fight the unbeatable foe, to bear with unbearable sorrow, to run where the brave dare not go. A new plan was quickly established. Oh, it's a long, long while from Tishrei to Sivan, but the days grow short when you reach Heshvan. When the Sukkos weather turns leaves to flame, one hasn't got time for the waiting game. In a dramatic turnaround, Mordecai was made the king's new chief advisor. His motto wasn't L'chaim, to life, but Zechachayim. That's life. That's what all the people say. You're riding high in Adar, shot down in Tishrei. But I know I'm going to change that rule when I'm back on top in Elul. By royal decree, the Jews were given permission to defend themselves. I'm going to sit right down and write myself a letter. Thus, the history and survival of the Jewish people continues on. We live with optimism because we got high hopes. We got high hopes. We got high Hamantash and tie in the sky hopes. That through Tikkun Olam, repair of the world, a new age can dawn. The best is yet to come, babe, won't it be fine? The best is yet to come the day you're mine. Remember our past, we would tell the story of Purim from generation to generation and land to land, for it was decreed. I'll be seeing you in all the old familiar places that this heart of mine embraces all day through. No wonder this Purim, we Jews should grab your coat and get your hat, leave your worry at the doorstep, just direct your feet to the sunny side of the street. That is, head right to our synagogue with Michelle and Peggy, who are here in person, you who are here on Zoom. And while we're here, merry we shall be, because you gotta accentuate the positive, eliminate the negative, latch on to the affirmative, don't mess with Mr. In-Between. To sum up this sacred scroll, the sacred stroll down memory lane, start spreading the news. We're leaving today. We want to be a part of it. Shushan, Shushan. These suburban Jews are longing to pray right to the very heart of it. Shushan, Shushan. If we can make it there, we'll take it anywhere. It's up to you, Shushan, Shushan. Our story ends, and an immortal line in The Godfather was to leave the gun and take the cannoli. We leave the Sinatra Megillah, take the Hamantash. And finally, there is a blessing to be said after, and I'll just screen share this blessing, which is said after the Megillah, and Baruch Mordechai HaYehudi, Brucha Esther Ba'adi, V'gam Charbona, Zachor Latov. Here comes Charbona back into the picture. Blessed is Mordechai the Jew, blessed is Esther our protector, and also Charbona is remembered for good. So let me stop there. Wish everybody a very happy